Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined now by my friend Keith Krach. He was the Undersecretary of State in the Trump administration, the go-to guy for Mike Pompeo and President Trump on clean tech, making tech safe for everyone around the world. Undersecretary Krach, welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Hugh, it's so good to be back with you. I really appreciate it.
You're almost abandoning Cleveland, right? You're going to go see your mom in Cleveland?
I'm going to go see my 95-year-old mom in Cleveland tomorrow, so I'm so excited. Back to your home turf.
Yeah. Now, Undersecretary Krach, I want to talk to you about two things. Nancy Pelosi has announced she's going to Taiwan and the CHIPS Act. So what do you make of Speaker Pelosi? I think it's a great thing that she carried through under all these threats. What do you think about that?
By the way, I absolutely do. Hugh, I remember when I had this great honor to be the highest ranking State Department official to go to Taiwan in 41 years. I was greeted with 40 fighters and bombers going over the Meridian Line. But I can tell you, this is really important. And Taiwan is a linchpin of democracy. They're a role model for freedom. And to General Secretary Xi, what it represents to him is it dispels his myth that the Chinese culture cannot live under a democracy.
Now, when you say that, Xi is about to be reelected to another 5-year term. He's basically leader for life. He's a dictator. China looks to me to be under extraordinary stress under Secretary Krach, right? I mean, their Evergrande, their real estate market, their lack of resources, and their lockdown policy, they are under a lot of stress. Is that tempting him to lurch at Taiwan?
By the way, they are under a lot of stress. And you can see some of the things, for example, that she's doing in terms of his crackdown in the private sector. Obviously his lockdown has created a lot of frustrated citizens over there. So in his conversation with President Biden, it was bellicose. And when he, said, hey, those who play with fire will perish, he's kind of taken that strong position. It's basically assured that he's going to get, this dictator's going to get reelected. But he wants to pass this agenda. So he wants to seem really, really strong now.
Now, Keith Krach, I'm talking with Keith Krach, former Undersecretary. You were the clean tech guy. Now, Taiwan Semiconductors. I tell people almost every day, America needs clean water, clean air, good food, and semiconductor chips. And most of our semiconductor chips, we went from 37% of the production internationally in 1990 to 12% now. The CHIPS Act is going to bring back and subsidize fabrication plants like the one in Ohio that Intel's going to build and the one in Arizona. I'm happy about that, but are we undermining Taiwan by bringing some of the semiconductor production here, or are we making ourselves safe?
By the way, no, this was a great move. So when we onshored TSMC, the largest onshoring in history, $12 billion, there were a lot of great byproducts that came out of that. First of all, we strengthened and secured our semiconductor supply chain. As many of your listeners know, this is the most important industry in the world. And the other thing that did is it was a catalyst to bring their ecosystem of suppliers over, as well as we use that to persuade Intel and Samsung to invest in the United States, because manufacturing was 12% of the world's share. So this is tremendous. And in order to do that, and also that was our catalyst to work with Senator Corn on the Chips and Science Act, which is actually a combination of another bill we worked with Senator Schumer and Senator Young on in terms of funding R&D for the 10 most important critical national security sectors. This is a great bill. Yes, it's expensive, but I'll tell you, when it comes to securing our national security and fighting for the freedoms, because technology is the battleground, this is a priceless investment. And to Xi, what he's terrified of is a Sputnik moment and us launching a moonshot. This is equivalent of that.
Now, I got to do full disclosure for the audience. You are all in on Purdue. Unfortunately, you didn't put any of your funding over at Ohio State. I think you ought to open a second center at Ohio State near Intel, Keith Krach. But you're all into Purdue. Todd Rounds ran the science part of the Chips and Science Act. I am skeptical of that much money in the National Science Foundation. How are you going to keep that money from going to shadowy Chinese-backed companies and investors?
By the way, that's an absolutely great point, but it's because it's critical that we make sure this doesn't fall in those guys' hands, because, China has been stealing that intellectual property for so long. And by the way, our guardrails on that right now are not very good. In the CHIP Act, they put some in, but I can tell you what this CHIP Act provides is the carrots and the stick to ensure wherever that money goes, you better have the guardrails in place to make sure it doesn't fall in their hands. So that's one of the things that we're doing at the Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue. We're coming up with what I call a PPP document. That's a policy, process, and procedures that can be used by the Commerce Department, can be used by, when they put out RFPs, it can be used by universities as a best practices template. Here's how you make sure this doesn't fall in our adversaries' hands.
Keith Krach, tell us a little bit about this institute. I do want a sister institute over at Ohio State, so you got quality people going to it. But, Jerry Hendricks and the other Boilermakers who are listening, they need to know about your institute.
So the Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue has rapidly become the preeminent authority on tech diplomacy and tech statecraft. And what tech statecraft is, that's what we developed when I brought 12 folks from Silicon Valley into the State Department. It's the integration of Silicon Valley's strategies with foreign policy tools based on the trust doctrine, which was something that we utilized to defeat China's master plan for 5G. And now that's created a great bipartisan model with continuity of policy. And it underlies the White House's declaration for the future of the internet. So this is a powerful model because the allies are so key to that.
I'm always promoting Hillsdale College on this show. I got to start promoting Purdue. Do undergraduates get to do the institute, or is that just for grad students with the big brains in math and science and computer science?
Well, by the way, it extends beyond Purdue. So obviously it's for grads, undergrads, but also on our advisory board, we have folks like former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta. We have General Stanley McChrystal. We have Dan Golden, the longest-serving director of NASA. We have the Deputy Secretary General of NATO. So this is an all-star cast. And we just announced, Hugh, the Global Tech Security Commission. We did it in partnership with the Atlantic Council. And what this is all about is to dig deep in the 17 national security tech sectors and develop an integrated plan over a 2-year time period. It has the backing of the White House, and it has the backing of Congress.
Keith Krach, now I've unsuccessfully urged you to run for office in California for Senate. What are your plans for the near term for future? What are you up to?
Well, I'm really focused in that area. I really caught the bug when I ran United States economic diplomacy, Hugh, because, what I saw out there in government, I have so much respect for our career people out there, is that, this democracy, where you and I grew up, that white picket fence, the dog, 2.5 children, all that freedom, running around the backyard, that doesn't come for free. And because the natural order of things is the bad king, the dictator, and the emperor. And it goes against all the laws of physics. And we got to protect that every day. And the battleground is technology. So I'm committed to that as a private citizen, do whatever I can.
Last question, Keith Krach. This is an investor question. Markets in technology got crushed over the last 6 months. Is that just a cycle in and cycle out sort of thing, or does it represent some fundamental loss of competitiveness and productivity?
Those cycles go up and down. So I'm not worried about that. But I can tell you one of the big things that's going on is how the Chinese Communist Party has infiltrated our capital markets, and particularly in the ESG area. So if you look at what ESG stands, environment, social, and governance. And what China's done is they've created an unnatural amount of subsidiaries. They're military companies. They're surveillance companies for the purpose of deception. They get buried in the MSCI index fund. Then they go in BlackRock's 431 ETFs, and that goes, Hugh, into our $11.7 trillion pension funds. And so the average American citizen is unknowingly financing China's military buildup, their surveillance state, and their genocide.
We've got to work on that. Keith Krach, you are a tireless advocate for freedom and for transparency. Thank you for joining me this morning. Good luck to you in the work ahead at the Institute for Technology Diplomacy at Purdue. Gosh, I hate saying good things about Purdue. Thank you, Keith Krach.
You're a Boilermaker at heart, by the way.
No, I'm a Buckeye at heart, but try and put some money into the football program there so it's more than a homecoming game. Be well, Keith.
There you go again.
Be well. I know, I got to get him once in a while. Hey, America, you should investigate that institute. You really should. Keith Krach's a great American.